So I'm now going to create the pattern for sleeve number 16 on page 132. Can you see it's got an extra little section here on the sleeve head? So I'm now going to create the pattern for it. So what I've done, again, I have drawn around, it's going to be a short sleeve, so I've drawn around the sleeve block, and I'm going to we need to cut off the section here, this section here. So it doesn't look like it, but you just draw across a straight line. I'm just going to draw it here. You're the designer, you can make it wherever you want basically. And now we're going to have to slash the sleeve and create volume as we've done previously. So I'm going to do slash, measure out from that line 4 centimetres, and on the hem of the sleeve I'm going to do 3 here, and I'm just going to draw the lines in like that. So now what I'm doing is I'm going to cut across this section here, this little cap as such. So I'm now cutting across the cap like that, and I'm going to leave that section out of the way for the minute. So what I'm doing here, I'm drawing a straight line here. That's my cap section I've just cut off. I'm drawing a straight line, and again I'm drawing a vertical line. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to spread, again it's another slash and spread exercise here. Let me just draw my line further down. Okay, so what I'm doing here now, I'm cutting up this line here, and I'm slashing up here like that, and I'm spreading this out to these little bits end up on the straight line basically, and I'm taping them down. So that little V there is equal, either side is spread out equally either side of that vertical line. So I've created, just sticking them down. Okay. So now, we don't want to forget what's the back and the front of the sleeve. So I know that's the back and that's the front, so don't forget that. So now I'm going to take my pencil and I'm going to draw a nice curve on this. Okay. And I'm going to cut that out, and I'm going to add on seams, and I've already done that. So what I've done is to bring this in, the section I've just cut, there it is, and I have added on a centimetre seam, and I've added a notch here and a notch here. So now I know how much I've spread these out, because I've spread them out so that they're going to be, that line's going to be as straight as it possibly can. It's not perfectly straight, but you will make it straight. Now, so what I do here now is I take this and I'm going to slash it down these lines. And what I'm doing is I'm spreading that out by the same amount as these little V's are spread out. Can you see? So that centre V is spread out by about 2 centimetres. This one here is about 1 centimetre, and the one at the other side here is 2 centimetres approximately. Once again, I have stuck it onto another piece of paper and I've cut it out. So I'm going to bring this in. I've already stuck it onto paper here. The paper is a bit wrinkly because I've stuck it on with glue. So can you see here, these little V's are all matching. Can you see? So I've put my notches for the back of the sleeve and the front of the sleeve here. Already done that. And I've now added on seam alliances. And now here's the pattern we've just cut for the shaped sleeve. I've just cut it out in fabric. And I'm now going to sew it up. So I've got a little notch. Oh, my little notch is not there, and put it in. That's very, very bad, Jane. Okay. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to sew that curvy bit on there. So I'm matching up the notches to begin with. And see, remember I put my pins in at a right angle to the edge of the cloth always. So I'm now going to sew across the top of that seam. So I've now sewn the seam, I've sewn this top section of the sleeve head onto the sleeve. Can you see how we're getting a really different shape this time? I've pressed the seams to one side, and to enable me for it to sit properly, I've had to snip in, take these little snips out of it, and that allows the whole thing to fold the right way. Right, let's look at the hem of this sleeve. Can you see it's on a curve? I physically could not turn the edge of that up because the length of the edge of the fabric is shorter than where I'm turning up to, and it would end up being puckered. So what I've had to do in this case is make a little facing, which I'm going to sew on now. And I'm going to sew this little facing on with a 5mm seam because it's on a curve. Now, I've finished off the edge and I want that to turn over like that, but I'm going to help it by doing something called understitching. Now watch what I'm doing here carefully. I'm taking that facing, turning it over, but all my seams is going the same direction as the facing. You see? So I'm turning it that way. It's called understitching. And I'm now going to stitch a couple of millimeters from the seam. Okay. So this is going to help the facing stay inside the sleeve and not be seen. It's running off. So now, once I turn that up, can you see? We've now got a nice finished edge. I don't see any edges of the facing. So I'm now going to join the underarm seam, and the next time you're going to see this little sleeve, it's going to be in one of the bodices I previously have made. Right, and here I've sewn this little sleeve with the cap on it onto one of the bodices I made with the yokes on it last week. Now, can you see how the cap sits out really beautifully here? I've actually top stitched this to make it stand out even more. And I turn it around. Interestingly enough, the little cap runs in line with that beautifully, and I've top stitched that on red thread. That could be quite attractive. So that little sleeve is quite sculptured looking. It's quite, it's the way it's sticking out, and it's quite interesting. So you can do all sorts of lovely, interesting things with sleeves. And because I put the little facing on, look, can you see? The edge of the sleeve is finished off.